Hello and welcome to this BioProcess International Ask the Expert webcast. I'm your host, Mia Rosen, the online editor for BioProcess International. Before we get started, just a couple of notes. This webcast is being recorded and will be made available for replay in the multimedia section of our website. We've muted the audio lines, but we welcome you to type in your question for our speaker in the question and answer window on your screen. After the presentation, we will begin the question and answer portion, and I will ask your speaker your questions. Your questions in the question and answer window will only be visible to myself and our speaker. So thank you for joining us today. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Joe Ferraiolo from C Technologies, a Repligen company.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the webinar. I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day to learn about different applications for the solo VPE, focusing on gene therapy this time. We're going to talk a little bit about Repligen C Technologies, not too much. We'll get straight into addressing the challenges within gene therapy applications, and then straight into applications for plasmid DNA manufacturing, and then looking into viral vectors, specifically empty full. So part of C Technologies is now part of the Repligen family. We were acquired in the middle of last year, and we now provide the analytics arm of the organization. So the primary focus for the solo VPE and flow VPE being slope spectroscopy, mainly is for downstream processing, is where the majority of the work in business is done related to applications. So it certainly pairs nicely with what the organization has done throughout the world of biopharma. Obviously, most of you are aware with the challenges in gene therapy manufacturing. We all want quicker, we want faster, more reproducible, single use, high throughput, and really trying to refine the process to always look for a better way of how to do things, right? So this is not necessarily anything that should be, the light bulb should be going off here. But we're certainly going to get into the specifics about what Repligen and C Technologies do to address these particular demands within the industry, and why we believe that we have a better toolbox, to address these challenges. So first and foremost, if your current platform for measuring anything related to gene therapy is using standard UV, you can see all of these process times from estimation all the way through report that must be done in order to generate any data or values. Our approach using slope spectroscopy eliminates the majority of this process flow, where estimation and dilution are no longer required. Plot calculating and acceptance criteria are completely automated. So we've essentially have turned this process into a measure report scenario. So it removes and automates multiple steps. The gain time to results, robustness and simplicity is built in, and it improves the workflow and validation. And this is critical, especially when you're validating methods or looking to transfer methods either downstream within the organization or potentially to contract research or manufacturing. So for us, it is critical not just to introduce a comparable technology to what's already existed on the market. It's time to look at this as what can be done to revolutionize how this has been done by incorporating what are the pain points for all of you and how we can address them. So first, we're going to be looking at slope spectroscopy for plasmid DNA manufacturing. Specifically, we're going to focus on culture density, the famous OD600 test, and plasmid concentration. So we're talking about the A280, A260 ratio. And you can see that both are used throughout the entire downstream processing. This paper was generated by the BCC in Switzerland. It's also available for download on our website under the literature section. What they wanted to do was prove two things. One, that you can certainly get equivalent data using SoloVPE over a standard spectrophotometer, but more importantly, show how many steps no longer require dilution in this process, whereas the SoloVPE obviously just runs straight forward without the need for dilutions. And you can see that literally half of the time would be spent diluting to get these values for this process, where the SoloVPE no longer requires dilution and will guarantee linearity at every time point, in this case being every 30 minutes. So we've shown equivalency and obviously the benefits by not having to stop the process for dilution, which is also critical because we know that we still have cell growth going on here. So we minimize the time spent having the sample remain resident and use that time for actual testing itself. This case study and paper was performed by Amgen for quantitating nucleic acids without dilution. Their former method was using the thermo nanodrop, and unfortunately for them, they're limited by the range of that device because it is still a fixed path length UV technology, whereas they were only able to calculate data up to 3 mg per mil. Once the concentration increased past that, they required dilution steps, whereas the Solo did not. So this is now their primary platform for nucleic acid quantitation, and they push the range up to 200 mg per mil without having the need for dilutions. The next slide is a sampling of data from a recently published paper we collaborated with Pfizer for in DNA quantity and quality, okay? What we did was take 25 different mixes of plasmid and insulin and measure SoloVPE at the given samples compared to the standard UV. And obviously we show an excellent overlap versus the expected, and more importantly, our repeatability and the difference is off the charts accurate. This proves, number one, that obviously we're comparable, but again, to drive home the point again, that typically in areas where you would require dilution, you do not. So this experiment works exactly the same, where we are taking slopes rather than single absorbance values, performing a dual slope ratio analysis, and then dividing that number by the extinction coefficient to calculate concentration. This paper is also available for read and goes into a little bit more about how the study was defined and certainly gives guidance on what needs to be set up in order to create a platform method. Now we'll talk a little bit about viral vector production. So we are specifically talking about empty full here. This is a very new application for us. Within the next 6 months, there's going to be additional information, posters, papers, publications that will be generated once additional sample collecting has been done. But we did want to share some preliminary results based on the work to date that leads us to believe that we now have a potential solution for monitoring empty full using slope spectroscopy. So what we wanted to establish, most importantly, is can the SoloVPE distinguish, using slope regressions, differences between empty and full capsids, okay? So we worked with a particular customer that provided us empty and full labeled material. This was done on AAV samples, and we analyzed the samples at 280 and 260, no dilutions. We had excellent linearity, and we are comparing the results of this by full ELISA and qPCR. And here was the result of that data. So the graph on the left is the full, where you can see the two slope regressions at each wavelength. And more importantly, you see the R-squared values for each of those regressions. So this is proving that we do have accurate and linear data versus the empty. Now, the two takeaways here, still accurate R-squared values that are very high, but we can detect the lower slope for the DNA in this ratio. So there's a couple of factors that need to go into place here. So when we're calculating something like this, we're taking obviously the either known or theoretical extinction coefficient and using that in the calculation. And this is also a bit of departure for us where we're looking at quite wide tolerances in the protein world and DNA world. We're looking at, sub-percent, accuracy levels where this can range anywhere from 20% to 50% in some cases. The expected full value of the material using qPCR and ELISA was 69% full, and the SoloVPE system calculated 78%. This particular customer's tolerances was about plus or minus 20 to 25%, so we're certainly well within their error range the first time out. But the real benefit here is that we took essentially a one-week process between qPCR and ELISA and turned it into something that could be done in 5 minutes using slope regressions that show a clear difference between the full and empty capsids. So our approach is as follows. This is standard, or what's typically known as traditional UV. There is no difference between this technique, a nanodrop, a nanoview, a lunatic. It is all still fixed path length UV. While some companies have made the path length smaller, it still doesn't account for having a fixed path length where the sample must be within the linear range of the device in order to get that measurement. We have lots of issues: dilution error, linear range of each spectrophotometer, and the more downstream you go with these processes, you're sending samples out for analysis, and those assay times could take anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. We are still a UV-based technique, okay? The only two things we do differently is vary the path length and use multiple data points to calculate slope regressions. That way we can assign R-squared values to every single slope regression collected by the software to prove to the user that you have accurate and linear data. So the path length is determined from the bottom of what's called a fibrette, which is a solid core silica fiber, not hollow, not capillary. Nothing is happening to the liquid within the sample vessel. And the Solo can measure in path length ranges of 5 micron to 15 millimeters in as small as a 5 micron step. So the SoloVPE has 3,000 choices of path length to find the best linear regression for your particular sample. So in this case, the variable is path length, not concentration. The ASTM has a standard for UV-Vis quantitation. It is revised only once every 5 years. Specifically, the E169-16 now includes a statement: to avoid the dilution step, the instrument may contain an automatic system which will allow the path length, adjustment of the path length, the measurement cell to optimize the measured absorbance. This is slope spectroscopy. You will not be new to the SoloVPE. It's been established for well over 10 years and is now becoming a staple as the platform method with most UV methods within the world of pharma. And this is give further credence that this technology is as certainly comparable to standard UV, but obviously superior by being able to generate linear data for you every time a measurement is made. So for us, we want to be innovative, being part of the Repligen family allows us to do that because we are solely interested in how to make our customers' lives easier and provide a better quality of data. The technology is very fast. What we've showed you mostly is Solo VPE. Our other product, the Flow VPE, is our inline version for slope spectroscopy. So you are now bringing that directly into your process where kinetic studies can be done without any sample prep, manipulation, pulling of samples for further processing. So essentially you're just watching concentration increase over time. And we carry the same accuracy benefits throughout the entire platform. Our specification and repeatability has been plus or minus 2% for well over a decade. So at this point, I want to thank you all for attending. I do appreciate all of you taking time out of your day. If you have any additional questions after this webinar has ended, here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out anytime to discuss further.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Are you ready?
Yeah,
we have some
go ahead.
good audience questions here. Okay. So for empty versus full capsid quantitation, how pure do the samples need to be, and can this be used in cell culture harvest?
The data that we've generated, or we're talking about, they should be pretty clean to use. We're not saying that it can't be done. We certainly are working on applications with regards to dirty samples. I would say stay tuned on that. But for now, what we feel 100% confident in is that it should be pure material.
Okay. And how did you calculate the percentage filled from the slopes?
That is actually a patent pending algorithm right now. So we do plan on releasing that later in this year in the form of a publication.
Okay. And what is the accuracy that you have to determine the path length, and how the error to fix the path length propagates the analytical determination? Is that part of the same?
Sure. So you would all obviously be running some sort of system suitability standard prior to the run. Okay, so and the R-squared value of that linear regression is your evidence that you have the linear data. What's nice about Solo VPE is that we don't care about absolute absorbance. So what we care about is the change of absorbance. So the step motor of the Solo VPE actually has a plus or minus 1 micron tolerance, and the smallest step that we allow the Solo to take is 5 microns. So we're certainly well within the tolerance range of that. But even more importantly, it's that change of absorbance that we care about.
Okay. So unfortunately, it looks like we just have time for one more question. There are a number of really great questions here. All of those will be passed to Joe, and he'll be able to follow up with you individually. So don't hesitate to continue to type in your questions, but we just have time for one more question. So can this method be validated under GMP, and is the software 21 CFR compliant?
Yes and yes. And my applications team, sole purpose in life is to actually assist users and clients within all of those developmental and validation steps with our software and the process.
Great, fantastic. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to our audience for joining us. The recorded version of this webcast will be available for on-demand viewing on our website, and as a registered attendee, you'll receive a follow-up email providing us a direct link. We look forward to having you join us at future BioProcess International Ask the Expert webcast. Look for those announcements in your inbox. Goodbye.